James, we had a conversation earlier about Harrison Barnes. I feel like we have talked about virtually everybody on the Kings roster except for Harrison Barnes. Was there or is there a trade market for him? Do you have teams called that you're aware of, or do you think, like, people have inquired about, hey, what's the availability of Harrison Barnes? You interested in moving him? Here's what you could possibly get in return.
You know, I think that there was a huge trade market for Harrison at the deadline. I mean, he had one of his best seasons of his career. You know, we saw Boston chasing him hard. At the end of the day, I think the Kings look at Harrison as the bridge guy, the guy that gets them to the next generation. And he's the solid vet who's there to basically help groom this team and get them ready, teach them how to be pros, both on the court and off the court, teach them how to work in the community, how to keep their bodies in great shape. There's a good value to him. And not only that, but they're the ones who signed him to the declining scale contract. So he's got 2 more years, and at what he make, $20 million this year, $18 million next. That's a really good bargain for Harrison Barnes. People don't love to hear that, but really it is. I mean, he's a very, very good player that can play 35 minutes a night. So our team's calling. I'm sure they have all offseason. But he's not someone that the Kings are shopping. And, you know, I don't think that there are a lot of players that the Kings are shopping. They have their small group that they're shopping. But Harrison, I don't think is one of them.
In your opinion, James, just hypothetically, because I agree with you, I don't think he's being shopped or being included in any of these trade discussions. But if they were to switch out, you know, our universal trade of Bagley, Buddy, couple of firsts, and, you know, go seeking for talent, if they were to switch out Buddy for Barnes, do you think they would have more people interested in that deal than the one that has Bagley and Buddy in it?
You know, probably. To be honest with you, I think Barnes on the open market has more value than Buddy, even though Buddy has that elite skill of shooting. You know, Barnes is still a very good three-point shooter. He's a solid defensive player. He upped his rebounds. He upped his assists per game. I mean, really, he did have a very, very strong season for the Kings this year. And he's a guy who, on a normal season, plays. They both do. They both play close to 80 games every season. I think Buddy Hield's only missed 3 games total in his career. Harrison missed a few games with an adductor, I think it was at the end of the season. He had one little, like, bump and bruise early in the season, too, where he missed 1 or 2 games. But these are guys that are solid, that come out and play every night. I think Barnes' versatility for a team like Philadelphia, per se, it does make a lot of sense. But more than anything, that team really does need three-point shooters, which is why Buddy has always been sort of the guy that you want to center a trade around. And, you know, I think I told you guys this once before. I think if you're going to make a deal for Ben Simmons, there's a way that the Buddy Hield makes more sense than Harrison Barnes with pairing with Simmons. I think Buddy can play the 3. He's not someone you want to have playing the 3 full time, but you know, he is strong. He's built. He's lateral quickness. I think he's better suited to play the 3. Strength wise, he can hold his own at the 3. But his ability to shoot and space the floor is elite, and I think that actually would play really well with Ben Simmons.
Kings insider James Ham with us here on D'Lo and KC. You wrote a great article, I think it was yesterday or the last day or two, about questioning, you know, you posed the question, have the Kings done enough to compete in this upcoming season? And I'm curious, like, have they? I feel like so much of how we evaluate the Kings in their offseason hinges on the names that, you know, we just got done talking about, James, Buddy Hield, perhaps Harrison Barnes, Marvin Bagley, or maybe more specifically the acquisition of someone like Ben Simmons or Pascal Siakam. But none of that has happened. So do you think, as is, the Kings have done enough to compete next year?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when we talk about the Kings and, you know, what they've done during the offseason. You know, I think what you can do, you can grade individual acquisitions, right? So if we look at like a Mo Harkless pickup, you know, for me, that's a solid like B- pickup, like to retain your own guy. You talk about Rashawn Holmes, that's a solid like A-, B+ pickup for the Kings. Even Alex Len, give me a C+ for that because I think he fits a need. Terrence Davis, you know, so when we look at it, but you're always looking at it through the lens of, well, it's the Kings. So, no, the Kings didn't go do a sign and trade for Lauri Markkanen. No, they didn't go get the big heavy hitter. And so when I look at the team and I compare it to the roster that started last season, I think that they're way better than they were coming into last season. And, so I think you're going to see a reduction in things like 9-game losing streaks. I don't think if you would have had this type of depth coming into last season, you would not have had 2 9-game losing streaks. If you change those numbers around and just say they went 2-5 in those 9 games, right? 2-7 in those 9 games. Well, 4 more wins get you in the playoffs, or at least get you in the play-in game. This team didn't miss by that much. It really is, like, if you do the math, it's a 35-win team. It's not a 31-win team because there's only 72 games. So if I look at that, like 35 wins, and I start taking away little win totals here and there, how can I get to at least like 42? I think this team could win 42. So, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be in the playoff consideration. The playoffs could be 48 wins this year again in the Western Conference. So I think the answer is, like, I gave them an incomplete because you can see what they're trying to do. Like, there's no question. You can see that they have a roster and then they have 2 guys kind of off to the side just waiting to be traded. And the trade just hasn't gone through. They haven't found the right trade partner yet. And I think that that's really an awkward way to walk into a season, especially when you have 15 straight losing seasons and 15 straight seasons without a playoff appearance. So at some point, you're either this is who you are and this is the team that you have. But I don't even, I listened to Tyrese Haliburton on The Old Man and the Three. And, he doesn't even know how to describe what Buddy Hield is right now. Like, and they didn't push him on it, but it's like, we've got our backcourt, what he means him and De'Aaron, and then they got Davion, and then they got Terrence Davis, and, oh yeah, we have Buddy. And it's like, where does all of these pieces fit? And the answer is they don't, and you've been waiting for that one deal to sort of balance the whole thing, and it just hasn't happened. And I don't know that it will happen. And so it's an awkward situation to be in, I would say.
So we're going to do it a little earlier here. We do it weekly. We do it every time. It feels like everybody is on vacation and enjoying their off season right now. So I don't think anything will happen right now. But, James, opening night, Bagley, Buddy, Sacramento Kings.
Man, I don't think that's the plan. but at this point, like, they're still there, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're still on the roster. And look, I don't think it's a total indictment on either player. Like, it's just that at some point you can't keep trying the same thing again and again and expecting a different outcome. And those are kind of the 2 that you've circled that are movable in a transaction. And, even if you look at Bagley as an expiring contract, and we talked about, like, Tristan Thompson could be looked at in the same trade, right? They could swap out Tristan Thompson, throw in Robert Woodard if they needed to, whatever. They could make a deal happen with or without Bagley, with Buddy. They could do it with Bagley and with Barnes, with Tristan Thompson, with Barnes. There's a lot of different combinations that they could do, which kind of makes things slightly awkward. But, we got to that point in the offseason where most of the players are back in Sacramento. They all have been arriving in the last couple of days, and they're going at each other, and they're having a good time. And this is what you're going to roll with until you don't roll with it, until somebody else is gone. And so you hope that they're breaking bread and they're pulling these guys in and saying, look, we don't know what's going to happen with you, but, you're welcome here, and we still love you, and you're still our teammate.
And you know what, James, real quick, Dave, I'll even say the fact that Bagley and Buddy haven't been moved isn't even necessarily an indictment on them. Like, I look around the league, and it's just like the fits, the timing of, a trade, all that stuff. There's not a lot, if any, that work for Buddy and Bagley to be moved. That doesn't mean they're not good players or that other teams wouldn't want them. It just seems like the timing right now just isn't right for a deal with either one of them to be made. That's just kind of what I see.
Yeah, we still have time. There's still plenty of time before not just training camp starts. I think media day is going to be around the 27th. And then that means the training camp will start the 28th or the 29th, right around there. But there's still time before then. And then, the regular season doesn't start for the Kings until October 20th. I mean, we're still looking at, 6 weeks of opportunity to make a blockbuster trade that would change the direction of your franchise. And, look, I don't think every team out there is looking at this offseason the same way the Kings are. And, each trade partner has a different motivation for why they're doing what they're doing. But this one just seems like they are trying their best to make it work, trying their best to swing for the fences. And if that doesn't work, then they're just going to have to wait until the opportunity does arise.
I'm going to text James Ham at this time next week when he's on the beach with some sort of, slushy drink in his hand and just say, hey, James, Buddy going to be on the roster when the season starts, just so that I don't want the bit to die just because James going on vacation. We can't have that. But let me ask you this. How do you reconcile, and I understand they're professionals, James, but hey, dude's got feelings. And how do you reconcile with these guys? Buddy, I know you were getting congratulatory texts about going to Los Angeles, and everybody involved with the deal said they thought it was done. From Kyle Kuzma to Montrezl Harrell and everybody else involved, it was done until it wasn't. How do you reconcile with him? And I feel like there's something to be reconciled with Marvin, but that's probably a little bit different. Mm-hmm. How do you kind of all right, nothing got done. You're still a part of this franchise. Let's go out there and win.
I think both players at different times have put themselves in a situation where they aren't on the outside looking in of the team. I know that. I mean, Marvin has pushed some buttons here and there, but he's his teammates have always said, hey, look, we're fine with Marvin. We totally dig Marvin. Yeah. Even when his dad is going off and getting in a fight with, a Twitter beef with De'Aaron Fox's dad, behind the scenes, the players are still like, hey, look, we're fine. We're teammates. If we have a problem, he's right there. I'll go walk over and I'll say something to him. But as of right now, we don't need to do that. So I don't know that it's so much like the team and the players, because once you roll a ball out and say, okay, 5-on-5, let's go, your teammates, you're going to hoop. You're going to go at each other. You're going to have a good time during practice and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I think the real, what has to be reconciled is with the front office, with the management of the team. What are you trying to do with us? And are we going to be here? Are we not going to be here? And to be honest with you, I don't think either one of them would prefer, just because of the way things have worked out here, neither of them, I would believe, would want to be in Sacramento long term. Marvin was ready to move at the trade deadline, and to be honest with you, they couldn't find a taker that would work. And at this point, I think the Kings are still in that same situation where, if Marvin was who the Kings hoped he would be, A, they wouldn't be trading him, and B, this trade for Ben Simmons would have already gone through, because he would have been, a huge chip to throw into a deal if he got a 21, 22-year-old kid who's posting 20 and 10. I mean, again, you're not trading him, and you're sticking with the group you have, and you're probably 5 or 10 games better in the win total if he was who you thought he would be. So I think for Marvin, he has to look really hard in the mirror and say, okay, what do I have to do? I think with Buddy, it's different. Buddy has kind of lost his starting job because they drafted somebody else, and that somebody else is more versatile. And Buddy has had a really hard time complimenting Haliburton. It's one of the more awkward things. If you ask Buddy about Haliburton in a postgame, he always takes a strange jab. So even if what he does looks funny, he still hits a shot. But he never says oh my gosh, Haliburton has been amazing. It's always well, he's done really well, but he does it really in a weird way. But he's been good. So there's always that competition with Buddy. And to be honest, that's what you want, right? You want guys to want to compete against each other. You want him, and for that matter, you don't want Haliburton to just get handed a job that he hasn't earned. So I think competition is good, but at the same time, I don't think this is. It's a weird situation. You would hope that it wouldn't have carried on this long as far as it has. But at the end of the day, there's only so much McNair can do. There's only so much that Marvin and Buddy can do. They've got to walk back in and play out their contracts and just, hope for the best and hope that, if the Kings do make a deal, that it's one that puts them in a good position to succeed and where they can, better themselves going forward.
James, hearing you say that, it got my mind going, and I was wondering, and I know you said a lot of it has to be made up. Right here, I'm talking specifically with Marvin Bagley. Has to be made up between him and the front office. But I wonder how far a conversation with a teammate or a couple of teammates would go with Marvin. And maybe they've already had these conversations. But if Haliburton or maybe he needs to hear it from Fox or somebody or Davion or Rashawn, and they're like, yo, Rashawn or Marvin, I know this is a business. It's professional basketball. Like, I know you got to do what's best for your career, but man, I think if you stay here, we could do something special. I feel like we need you. You need us. Like, let's do this together. Part of me feels like that's never happened. Part of me feels like if that were to happen, maybe it could change how Marvin looks about potentially staying here in Sacramento. Do you think that matters at all if those things have happened? Or what do you think about that conversation potentially happening or not happening?
I think that there's always those conversations. I think there's always someone putting their arm around Marvin and saying, like, look, we don't blame you. We don't blame you for the fact that, you played, 113 out of a possible, 223 games or whatever. It's something like he's missed 48% of the games. Mm-hmm. They all feel bad for him when it does happen. But this season in particular, he made the decision to leave and go away for over a month. And he took, he was out for 6 weeks, right? With his second injury, his hand injury. He was away from the team during that time. And I'm not saying teammates are pointing fingers, because look, you have to remember that this season and this the bubble is different than any other season ever. Normally, we would have conversations with players off the record. We would know what the vibe was in the locker room a little bit better with regards to a specific player, just because, we're in there. But with COVID and not being let in the locker room and everything being Zoom and everyone having the same information, it is slightly different where, you're not going to get that personal touch or that relationship that I might have with one player who kind of looks at me sideways and goes, hey, things aren't going good, and, quietly say something. That's just not happening anymore because of the way that media is right now. So, look, I think that there should be a way, and the players know best. They've watched Marvin from a 19-year-old kid. They've watched the work that he's put in. They know better than us whether he does the work that they do or whether he doesn't do the work, whether he does the film study or he doesn't do the film study. Those are things that they already know. There's nothing we can tell them about Marvin that they don't already know. Right. And so I think the players have a better insight than what we want to act like they do. If there's someone who either does carry their weight and just happens to get hurt, or who doesn't carry their weight, who doesn't do the work, everyone in that room knows. And so those are conversations that they have with each other. Those are conversations that they have in small groups. And there's everyone in that room knows who and what Marvin is and how they stand with him and how they would accept him if he is going to be there full time. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that you or I really have any impact in, or somebody's dad or somebody else. It is what it is. They know each other really well.
Gotcha.
James Ham, Kings Insider, NBC Sports, with us here on D-Lo and KC. You mentioned Tyrese a couple of times. Is Tyrese growth, and this is kind of taking De'Aaron out of the equation. Obviously there's always hope that De'Aaron's going to be great or manage to get even better or play like an all-star or however we want to frame it. But outside of De'Aaron Fox, is Tyrese Haliburton's growth the most important thing to this upcoming season for the Kings?
Yeah, I think without a doubt. I don't think there's anything that's even remotely close. We know who Harrison Barnes is. We know who Rashawn Holmes is. We know what Alex Len can give you off the bench. We know what Mo Harkless can give you off the bench. Even for that matter, I think we have a pretty good idea of who Terrence Davis is. You start going around, and next thing you know, you get to the two key components. I think it's Fox and it's Haliburton. And while Fox put up 25.2 and 7.2 and 1.5 steals, and played 35 minutes tonight, which was a career high. I think what we're waiting for is that moment where it's every game he's so dominant that you can't look away. And we're so close to that. And I think, again, you look at him posting his swole pics on the gram, and, he's looking all buff, and that's what you're hoping, that every year he comes back and he's better. And if he can solidify and be not just 25-7, but 25-7, and he makes everyone better, he plays better defense, and he's able to sort of tighten the range of what his scoring pattern is. So as opposed to scoring, 35 one night and 15 another, we're more you can pretty much count on him to score between 22 and 28 every night, and that's how he gets to 25. That's when you've got something where he can walk onto a court without even trying, even take Chris Webber, for instance. Chris Webber, even when he had no knee left, he could still walk on a court and get you in 20 and 10 without even breaking a sweat. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're waiting for that moment where Fox, where it's okay, you're not only good, but you're that good every single night, and we know what we're getting. We're not going to pencil it in. We're going to write it in pen. So now when we shift to Haliburton, I think Haliburton is where Fox was a couple of years ago. Maybe not Fox from first year to second year, because Haliburton was so much better than Fox was in his first season. And, both of them will tell you that, Fox will tell you without any question, he's so much better than I was as a rookie. And it's just the composure, the way that he conducts himself, the way that he understands the game. All of those components are so good. So what you're waiting to see is Haliburton a 20-point a game, 20-point, 6 assists, 4.5 rebounds? Is that who he is? Or is he more like a 16.5? And, you got to figure out who he's going to be. And I think we'll see a major step this year, but then we'll really know who Haliburton is the next season, and we'll kind of have a good grasp on who he'll be for the rest of his career. And I think he's the guy who's gonna make the huge difference in this season, just because he's going to have a different role. He's going to be secondary ball handler. He's going to be the guy who, basically is asked to shoot all of the three-pointers that Buddy was, but at the same time make De'Aaron Fox better. And so I really like what we're seeing out of Haliburton. And I think that when you have a player like that, you look and you can see how special he can be, and you can see how this tandem could be similar to a Dame and CJ for a long time, where they can be really, really good together. And so, yeah, I do think Haliburton is really the biggest piece to improvement. But I also think, look, Fox has to be who he is. We need to know that each and every single game he is that good. And, look, we can talk about he's all-star level. He needs to be an all-star. And you can see it when someone's an all-star, and you can see it when someone's really close. Rudy Gay was really close for a long time, never made the all-star team. It was just you were waiting for that one more step, and he just never made it. And so you're hoping that Fox gets there this season.
In your opinion, James, where do you just kind of see Tyrese Haliburton landing in his career? I know we discuss it a lot of times on the show, and people are like, he could be an all-star, and he can, be CJ and all this other stuff. I don't think, and Tyrese is a great player. I love the way he plays. I don't think he's ever going to be that type of scorer, just because, and it's a compliment to him, in my opinion, is he doesn't take bad shots. And I think a lot of times to be this 20-plus per game scorer, you're going to have to force some things up, and he just doesn't seem to be who he is by nature as an offensive player. But I could see him being a 17, 18 points per game, 6, 7 assists, and maybe that's good enough for, all-stars in some situations. Hell, they give it to Ben Simmons. So maybe it'll work for him in some respects. But I think that's the type of player he could be. Am I selling him short a little bit in your opinion?
Well, I mean, look, I think we have to see more. I want a bigger sample size, because the one thing that I know about him is that he's absolutely brilliant on the court. His basketball IQ is extremely high. And, I've talked about, I feel like I beat on Buddy Hield about this. What we talked about last year, he had 33 of his 60 or 71 games. He didn't go to the free throw line. I think Haliburton, first of all, he doesn't go to the free throw line either. But when I watch him working out now, I see him using the strength that he's gained, and I see him using his body to draw contact and go up. And I think he's the guy that's realizing, like, look, I can probably get to 18 points a game just in the natural flow of stepping in the starting lineup, getting more opportunities, getting 2 or 3 shots more per game, increasing a field goal percentage a little bit here or there. But the way that he's going to be able to get to 20 or even higher is he's going to have to get to the line. And I think that's where can he use his basketball IQ to get to the line, to slow the game down for his teammates, to get that breath, and to become like an elite scorer as opposed to like a really solid second or third option on a team. And so I think he can get to 20. I don't think that's going to be super hard, but can he sustain that, or is it going to be like a one-off where he does that 1 or 2 seasons in his career? I think that there is a possibility for him to get much better. And look, we talk about C.J. McCollum, and, I'll compare De'Aaron Fox to Russell Westbrook all the time because, like, their statistical breakdown their first couple of years is almost identical. If you go to C.J. McCollum, look where he was as a rookie and a second-year player averaging 6 points, 8 points a game, and really not being a huge part of what they're doing versus what we saw from Haliburton in year one. And both of them, I think McCollum was even a year older than Haliburton was as a rookie, maybe even 2 years older. So he's so much further along. And so I think the potential is there. I think we're just going to have to see. Does he develop that killer instinct? Does he get to the line? Does he find a way to be more selfish? Because that's kind of like what separated. I think that Haliburton can get to where Bogdanovich was like this year. And then it's like, okay, how good can he be after that? And that's kind of where I would judge him. Like, let's give him 2 more years to really fill out and get stronger, like what we're seeing from Fox.
Yeah.
Why are we so fixated on size in basketball? Like De'Aaron's post go up, oh, look at De'Aaron. And I know Mark Jones had told us, months ago, I just saw De'Aaron Fox. He's put on 8 pounds. Like and I get it. Like, James, if it's content purposes, hey, you're a writer, we're talk show hosts, we're all in the content business. Are we just craving the 10 pounds of muscle story? Like, why in basketball are we so fixated on guys' size?
I was amused by him putting the pictures up, and then I thought, like the instant thing was, hey, dude, stop skipping leg day. That was, like, the first response from everybody. And then someone said, oh, the NBA. Like, when I wrote, like, just a quick hitter on it was when his fiance posted on Instagram that the league had called and asked him to take a drug test. Look, I've watched the natural progression of players for years. The Kings are always in the lottery. They always have a bunch of young players. I've watched it, everyone from, Jason Thompson, Tyreek Evans, Jimmer, Ben McLemore, like Thomas Robinson, you name it. I've watched all these guys. Like, they start out at one point, and then you hope to see them build and get stronger. And just the way Fox plays, I mean, he led all guards last year, and in field goal percentage at the rim, shot like, I saw a stat, something like 74% at the rim, which was just nuts. And if he's going to be able to stay strong and play 35 minutes a game, he has to do what he's doing right now because he's still at an age, he's 23 years old. He'll be 24, I think, in either December or January. I think it's December. But he's still at an age where he's going to have a difficult time maintaining body weight because his metabolism is so high. So I like to see him skipping steps and getting stronger and being that kind of like physical player. Are we obsessed with it? Sure. And I'll tell you, like, sometimes it doesn't even matter. Like, I remember Jason Thompson coming into camp. Every year he had redefined his body. And the player that came in that, like, shot with his toes facing the completely wrong direction and was, like, wide and blocky through the hips and not very well defined. And then the player he was as, like, a 6-year guy, and every time he came in, he was ripped. And he took his body, and his regiment, like, very seriously during the offseason. Like, it never translated to anything better for Jason Thompson. And, in fact, he got less opportunity the longer he got into the league. So what you're hoping is that this is what Fox is going to look like, that he's going to be able to take the beating. He's going to be able to play major minutes, for a long time. And that's, to be an all-star, you need to play 70-plus games a year, and maybe even more than that. Like, you need to play a lot, and he's got to stay healthy just like everyone else does.
The biggest thing for me, James, is I want that shot to get right. I mean, and it's improving. It's doing something. I like it. It's getting more consistent. He's really consistent in the mid-range. But, you know, I love him, you know, bulking up in a little bit and being able to take the contact and withstand the whole season. But, man, if he could get that free throw percentage, I'm not even asking where it should be as a point guard. It should be at about 90. I'm just saying if you can get me to 83% from the line, and you can get me back to, I'm not even asking for 40. Just get me to 37 like you were your second year. Oh, we got action if De'Aaron Fox can do all that.
Yeah, I mean, like, the two things I'll point out. Number one, the free throw percentage has to get better. Like, if that's who you are, then get in and keep working on it. I mean, to me, a lot of his stuff when it comes to the free throw line is mental. I watch him rush stuff all the time. When he gets it and he just fires it, you know, he's just not taking that 1 or 2 seconds to clear his head, to focus, and then knock the shot down. Because I don't think he has a bad-looking free throw. But I'll tell you, I strongly believe that playing alongside a guy like Haliburton, who is going to get him at least 2 or 3 wide-open looks from three every single night, that will make a tremendous difference in his three-point percentage. I mean, again, he shot 39% on catch-and-shoot three-pointers last year. The deal is you need to get more catch-and-shoots for him and less off the dribble. And I think that that's what we're going to see with the ball in Haliburton's hands. You know, not 50-50, but a lot more than it was last year. And I also think, like, look, he's going to be able to attack from different angles. He's going to be more wide open, not just as a shooter, but, you know, he'll have better space if you have a true playmaker next to him, a creator next to him. And so I think just naturally he will get better because of that, because of the opportunity. Plus, I know he works on it nonstop. It's not like he's not in the gym trying to get better as a three-point shooter. And the other problem is he's really streaky, and that's where I come back to that whole thing where he has to do it consistently. It has to be every single game where he's this guy. He can't go 0 for 8 one night and 5 of 8 another night. That's just the inconsistency that really does hurt your ability to win games consistently.
James, we had to make some adjustments because of technology, but we appreciate you hanging with us. It's always one of the most popular conversations each week, so we thank you for making it work. And most of all, man, enjoy your vacation next week. We'll text you about Buddy Hield, of course, but we'll connect. We'll connect when you return. Nice and as tan as you could possibly get, and I have no idea what a James Ham tan would look like.
I don't either.
That's awesome, James. Thanks, buddy. Have a great vacation.
Take care, guys.